self-awareness and the ability to actually give without expectation are the two bricks of happiness, which has allowed me to go fast. When you're stable, you can go fast because you're not worried about judgment. That lack of fear is what gives an entrepreneur an advantage. That lack of fear is what lets somebody live life in happiness. We're in Jakarta in Indonesia. Nice 24-hour flight for D-Rock and I. Gonna go hit the stage, a couple hours of meetings afterwards, and then right back in the plane for 24 hours. So we'll see what we can do. You know, I think a lot of people should build around their interests and their hobbies, businesses, because I think it's I think it's a better life to be happy and make $200,000 a year or $55,000 or $5,000 and be happy than to make $1 million and be miserable. I really believe that. It's not sustainable. Unhappiness is not sustainable. But there's a lot of ways to do it. I'll give you an example. If you love football, soccer, football, right? Okay, so that's your passion, right? Now when you think about a business, when you go back to the market, do you build 433 and a huge Instagram page? Do you build a direct-to-consumer soccer ball business? Do you buy football jerseys and resell them on Facebook Marketplace? You see where I'm going? So I feel like there's a way to do both. And my opinion is, if you love football, then you're gonna be willing to be up at 11 o'clock at night DMing and trying to sell football jerseys. Whereas if you're trying to do cryptocurrency because you think there's money there, you're not interested, you're there for the money. I'm gonna create some context of my journey and just the opportunities for so many of the people. There's a huge mix of entrepreneurs, employees, home takers. So I'm gonna try to go wide and then talk about the mindset and the practicality around how you create a level of happiness and fulfillment through entrepreneurship in a 2019 environment. When I was a little kid in Edison, New Jersey, when grandparents came over, I would go play with the grandparents a lot. Maybe it was because I lost 3 of my 4 grandparents as a kid. And the number one thing I learned in the first 20 years of my life, spending more time with old people than most kids, is the biggest thing I fear is regret. Regret is scary. Resentment is very scary. The biggest reason I push kids to do what they want versus what their parents want is because I'd rather them and their parents have 5 or 6 or 7 years of bad than 80. Because it gets very ugly when you're 60 and they're 80 and you lived your life based on what they wanted and now you resent them. It gets real ugly real fast. I would rather you have the pain for the next 5 or 6 years of fighting and then have one of 2 things happen, which I think both are amazing. Number 1, you were right. You were right, and you are an amazing fashion designer, not an engineer, and you built a real company, and your parents are gonna be very, very proud. Or, you were wrong. You suck at fashion design. Nobody liked it. But at least for yourself, you never have to live the rest of your life asking yourself, what if? You win both ways. You live in a culture, I know, I watch. You live in a culture with a lot of expectations. You live in a culture where parents treat their kids as a property that indicates who they are. So does most of the world. This is not a Southeast Asia thing. This is not a Indonesia thing. This is a world thing. Parents are insecure too. And they like their kids closing their gap. We have to start talking about this. Let me give a very big secret to all the kids here who are living their lives for their parents or based on their parents' judgment. There's a very big secret that parents never tell you. If you go the other direction of where they want you to go, and you become really successful, they are really proud and make pretend they never pushed you in the other direction. Don't let this energy go away. One life, live it, please live it, go work. Thank you.
Kami juga ingin hidangan makan siang yang telah disediakan oleh GoWork 2010.
Is that good? You can hear me? You can hear me? This is what happens when you actually put out content from this place and this place. Do the right thing. It's always the right thing. Always. Really good. Energy was amazing. Super young crowd. At one point in the keynote, you see me asking how many people are under 40. There was like 11. Just spoke a lot about mindset. Just trying to eliminate excuses. Money and time is not an excuse anymore. It's 2019, the internet lives. This is now a mindset game. People aren't doing because of very silly mental roadblocks. And I'm trying to eliminate those roadblocks, D-Rock. I'm trying to eliminate them.
That people should live by themselves. I mean, not listening to other people's opinion, especially their parents.
Yes.
Sometimes it's very hard in Indonesia, and do you have any, can you elaborate more on not listening to your parents?
It's not that I want to be disrespectful to parents or things of that nature. It's just that, you know, ultimately at the end of the day, one day you're going to realize your life is yours and there's a lot of people important to you that surround it, but ultimately it's yours. And I just think it's actually practical to be selfish and on the offense in your youth. Most people in their youth think it's time to grow up, but they're 18, 22, 25, 29 years old. And so I think the social pressures normally from parents or other friends starting to make money or have success hurts people. Yet I think that rushing into relationships, jobs, you know, is just not a smart strategy. So I'm talking about it and I'm hoping that people are listening because I do think that it's very hard to tune out your parents. I have empathy for that. However, it doesn't make it wrong. Just because it's hard, you know, to me, to be very frank, the harder something is, the more likely it's fantastic. So I really meant what I said on stage, which I haven't articulated that way often, which is I'd rather people struggle with their parents in their 20s and 30s so that they can have a great relationship with them in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s versus always having a problem with your parents. And once you start living your life based on what your parents' expectations are or anybody else's, you've begun the process of not being happy. That is just the truth. Who's happy doing something that they don't want to be doing? Nobody. You may be content, you may deal with it, but you're not happy. I think where parents make a huge mistake is parents attack. You're gonna be this, you're gonna be a doctor, you're gonna be a lawyer, instead of sitting back in the beginning and watching and saying, ooh, you should be a painter, you love to paint. Most parents attack. My mom, and I'm like this in business too, we're boxers who let it's like good martial arts. You let the other person's force, got it? So the way, what she did was she fostered it by not forcing me to be something I wasn't and giving me opportunities to be who I was. I'll give you a good example. My mom would punish me when I got bad grades. Okay. She would punish me. I would get punished. But if there was a big baseball card show, even if I was punished, she'd let me go. No TV, no playing with friends, but a big baseball card show, she'd let me go because she knew that's where I was building my future.
Can we do a podcast in here from the keynote?
Yep.
Yep.
So I went to Jakarta for 10 hours and delivered this keynote. It was really interesting. D-Rock and I were just talking. Did a couple interviews, which I'm sure created some good content. And one of the things that I observed, and then D-Rock confirmed, which means it's true, is I've never stayed the course and didn't pander to such a lively audience. There was so much energy, so much youthful energy here in Jakarta that normally I would have gone super cursed out, super Chris Rock, you know, Kevin Hart style, and just made jokes. But it was interesting. I really stayed the course on my message. I hope you pick up on that message in today's podcast. Please enjoy. Right now is the greatest, most fruitful, most optimistic time in the history of the world. It is. The data's black and white. Health has never been better, medicine, genocide, war, like the media landscape and social media and traditional media has been incredibly effective in focusing on the negative. But the truth in the macro is, go talk to every grandparent of every millennial and ask them if the world's better today than it was when they were growing up. Like, there's a lot of good. And so I think a couple things is where I'm going with that. I think a lot more people could be a lot happier if they lived more humble, if they could just eliminate judgment of other people. I'm really passionate about that. I've become outrageously passionate about keeping up with the Joneses, as we call it in America. Like, insecurity. It kills. You start doing things that you can't afford.
You fail because you're surrounded by all these awesome people with really.
Yeah, so a couple things. It first starts with the fact that you're putting other people on a pedestal. You know, it's very easy to get into a sad place if you're surrounded by these awesome people and you're just mediocre. I just don't believe that. I just don't think, first of all, I don't think anybody is awesome or sucks from this standpoint. If somebody's good at something, it also means they're not good at something else. And I think most people dwell on what they're not good at and they praise on what people are good at and then reverse on themselves. Whereas, like, I'm the reverse. I think I'm great at certain things. I focus on that. I'm aware that I suck at a lot of things, but I don't put other people's strengths on a pedestal. And most importantly, I hate that people beat themselves up about their shortcomings, but then don't recognize it in other people and give them a pass because they're pretty or smart or funny or have a lot of followers. Do you know what I mean? I really believe the biggest driver that I never had, which is why it's so obvious to me and why I talk about it a lot, is the judgment of other people, of where you should be at this point in your life. All these 57-year-old parents that are telling their 23-year-old kids where they should be in life aren't where they should be at 57. And so then they're trying to make their kids, a lot of times it comes from a good place. They don't want their kids to make the same mistakes, but their kids are living in a different world. Now, this is the part where probably D-Rock ends with a bunch of like footage of the airplane. Beautiful cloud, land in New York, some Lil Keed, and away we go.